My name is Steve Forti, and this piece is called Derelict. Volstock popped the door, exposing circuits and wires and a mess of electronics that Johnston didn't bother to identify. She studied them, chewing at the insides of her cheek as she thought. Then she slid her tablet back out of its case along with a few cables. I think I can connect, see if I can access the controls. What about the hatch, Mayfield asked, getting up too close to her. She nodded. Yes, that too. That first, he replied. Good, Johnson cut in. Let me know as soon as you have something. Sergeant, there are 3 other egresses from this bridge. That tunnel, shown as light. And those 2 doors. I got the left, you check out the right. He didn't wait for an answer, or a protest. He headed for the door on the left. Unlike the blast door below, this one was more standard. He cautiously turned the knob. The door opened inward and he took a tenuous step. Footsteps approached behind. Johnson turned to see Sergeant Mayfield in the doorway. His face was pale, expression grim. What is it, he asked. Mayfield's lips started to move, then stopped. His tongue worked its way around his cheek, making it bulge from the inside. Then he took a deep breath, his head giving a little shake. There's something you need to see. There's something unnerving about the tone of his voice that Johnson couldn't quite place, but it seized his attention well enough. He left the kitchen and followed Mayfield to the other room, a crew recreation space. A pair of reclining lounge chairs, 2 treadmills for exercise, resistance bands attached to the wall, a cot with straps to hold down a napper. But it wasn't the furnishings themselves that made Johnson stop in his tracks, made the pit of his stomach threaten to lurch its contents. What froze his breath and blanked his mind were the occupants. Strapped to the cot and crumpled beside it, oddly hovering over the floor by its boots, were 2 bodies, Sergeant Mayfield and Lieutenant Volstock. So there's 2 ways I'll go about creating characters. One starts with the image of the character themselves, their unique personalities, quirks, flaws, what their motivations are. If they're such a vibrant force, then the character themselves become the story, how they interact with and influence the world. But more often I come at it from the other direction. So I've got the story concept and need to understand the people who fill out that world. So different needs are met by different characters, but I have a tendency to make my main characters kind of be the vessel for the reader. I like the closeness to be in their mind, and I don't bother with a lot of physical character description. I prefer to let the reader kind of allow themselves to become that person. And then as the character's thoughts and actions reveal who they are, then the reader's already embedded. So for Johnston, I needed the main eyes of the story to be experiencing that mystery at the same level. The little knowledge he has coming in matches that of the reader when they start the story. So he's level-headed, practical, cautious. He's used to leadership, so he makes quick decisions and trusts his gut reactions. But given the nature of the story, where the mystery and mechanism are the main focus of the story, I didn't want his personality to overpower that immersion for the reader. I wanted the reader to be able to relate to how he's experiencing the situation. And then once you're captured, let his actions kind of hold them along and feel like they might be their own choices. So if Johnson's the vessel for the reader, then the world needs to be filled with richer character too. So with the necessary elements to play off of Johnston and provide him assistance in conflict. He's got no knowledge of the situation, so we need a technical perspective, and Volstock provides that. She's kind of the brains of the operation. She was selected for the team specifically to figure out what's going on, and she does to an extent. When faced with the horror that they uncover, her mind goes right to trying to explain it. Mayfield, on the other hand, is the opposite in many ways. He's comes into the story all cocky, thinks he has his tools to handle anything. But when he's faced with that same horror, it breaks him. Throwing that instability into a character who's accustomed to overconfidence, it sets up the interpersonal conflict that exacerbates their situation. think to step off the page, the character needs to be, if not relatable, at least realistic. Whether they're wild, exaggerated, brash, meek, whatever it is, the reader needs to be able to visualize that person being right there in the room with them. So they need to be consistent. Their actions and emotions can't be dictated by the story. They need to believe that they're a real person with real reactions and consequences. And to me, memorable dialogue goes a long way. So patterns and styles of speech give so much to a character's personality. I also think, like I did with Johnson, rather than always making my main characters step off the page, I like to try and draw the reader to step into the page. Like I said, the character to be a vessel for the reader to immerse and experience the story. So while the story may sometimes create the character, that it's important for that relationship to go both ways. The logical or consistent actions and decisions that are made by Johnson and the others may seem reactionary in the moment, but given the true nature of their predicament, I think those real character decisions result in a very causal impact on the circumstances and ultimate resolution. So the characters can't just be along for the ride. It's important. I think some of my favorites are in the Expanse series. I think my favorites there are Christian Avasarala and Amos Burton. Avasarala knows who she is. She's strong and commanding, unapologetic about it, but she's also vulnerable. We see some softness in her relationship with her husband, but we also see a lot of the no-nonsense attitude in her professional life. I think the cursing and the harsh dialogue that she has, it sets up an initial shock and disconnect with what you think her character should be like, but it quickly kind of enamors you to her and strengthens her. She's got such presence and gravitas that she commands every scene she's in. I think Amos is another similar study in strength and vulnerability. He's another one who knows exactly who he is, but also knows what his limitations are. He's had a rough background, and I think it's really cool that he accepts that he's not a good person by nature, but he surrounds himself with good people that keep him on a righteous path. He's very self-understanding in that way. He wants to be good, but he knows his demons. I think he's capable, confident, acceptable to dialogue. He's got great one-liners, and so the audience embraces that toughness. I think one other interesting example would be Bob Johansson from the Bobiverse series by Dennis E. Taylor. This one might be a little more of a stretch because Bob's a replicant, and as he copies himself, each new iteration takes on a slightly different personality. He's always got snark, ingenuity, he's got a strong moral compass, you can relate to him, but each version of himself drifts that a little bit in different directions, eventually evolving stark differences that create conflict within and among essentially himself, and I find that very interesting. I would certainly be interested in that. I've always been obsessed with astronomy, space, the idea of aliens. I would want to be in there. I think given the exact opportunity, I might be a little hesitant just out of the danger of it, though. So I think I would want to, but I might chicken out. I always hope for peace, but I've got a bit of a cynical streak to me, so I think it completely depends on who on our side makes that contact. I think a lot of people would react to violence out of fear, but I'd like to hold out hope that we could make it peaceful. I'd like to thank the other writers of my local Hudson Writers group for helping to beta read this, and also the community over at Janet Reed's blog for all the support and helping me develop my voice and economy of words in flash fiction.